Hey everybody, Kerzac here again, and as you can see I have a much better lighting setup for my reviews here, so hopefully everything should work out a little bit better. And today I'm reviewing the Transformers War for Cybertron Siege Leader Class Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime. Now that's quite the mouthful. Let's just say it's Siege Leader Class Galaxy Optimus Prime. So clearly this is a figure that's inspired by the Transformers Cybertron / Galaxy Force Optimus Prime. As you can see, he's kind of got that same dual cannon fire truck thing going on, although a much cheaper version. This is a heavy retool of the Siege Leader Class Ultra Magnus. I do not have the Ultra Magnus, as I'm still sticking with my Platinum Edition one. But what I do have is the original Transformers Cybertron Optimus. Missing his gun. It's somewhere in a box somewhere. I'll have to find it later, but he still has everything else, so it's still a good comparison. You can see the new one here, of course, is much smaller. If we can get them side by side here. A lot smaller, as to be expected, with, you know, plastic costs have gone up. He doesn't have electronics like this one does. He doesn't have the same amount of paint. And obviously he's not as show accurate, since he is kind of just doing the Ultra Magnus thing with the armor up, rather than how the original transformed. But I am still glad to see Unicron Trilogy get some love every now and then. So, in one way I'm not happy with it because I think it feels a little too cheapened, but in another way I'm also like, well, at least we're getting something. But we'll get to that in a little bit. So let's look at the truck itself, and from the front it looks pretty good. It looks like Cybertron Optimus, you know. It's got the grille, it's got the windows, it's got some white paint here, yellow and black for the headlights. Looks pretty good. He's got the grille down here. Proportions aren't quite right, but it all looks good. The guns are on top and they're all done in silver, which actually looks really nice. If I'm being honest, that actually is really nice looking. All the detail up here, and you got little black grills down there. And then we get to everything else. So the moment you can start looking at it from the side, he honestly reminds me a lot of Power of the Prime's Optimus in a lot of ways, where looks good from the front for the most part, and the moment you look anywhere else, there's the head. There's the head just kind of hanging out there. Nothing blocking it, nothing covering it. And it's funny too, because it goes through all the effort of having these big blocks right here covering up the hands, but then we just have the head just sticking right there, sitting between his own legs. It's odd. And then of course we have the back here where it's very clearly just Ultra Magnus legs just sticking off the back like the original, and yeah, and you have the guns over here which look fine, but they also stick off the wings, and yeah, he also doesn't have the flight mode that the original had, so that's a little unfortunate, but also understandable. But it seems weird to have the legs, especially since you have the wheels. You know, this is the mode that the wheels are for, technically, and they're not painted. They're painted on the other side for the combined mode, but not for the vehicle mode. I mean, I'm guessing glad they got paint for the flight mode, but I think I actually almost prefer it the other way around. But the other wheels are painted, though, with silver on the rims, which all looks pretty nice. You do have this little odd gap right here, which does look a little messy. The guns have just this tiny bit of silver paint on the back, which is just a little random to me. There's silver back here for the little techno detail, which looks nice. So overall, they did try to really kind of bring in the look using the Ultra Magnus mold, and I think they were successful for what they were going for. I don't know. Like I said, I'm of two minds about it. I'm glad we got it, because I'm glad to see any kind of love for the Unicron Trilogy. But this is a little bit of a mess, if I'm being honest. I don't know. I ain't super about it, but I don't hate it either. One cool thing is the guns are really well articulated. They can point up and down. They can also point outward like so. So you actually have a lot of free movement with these, so that's pretty nice. Although they are very hollow. Very, very hollow. So that does kind of stink. I'm fine with stuff being hollow for the most part. I just wish we didn't have to see it. And you can really see a gap going straight through it right there. Like not only is it hollow, but it still has gaps in the parts that aren't hollow. So it's like, it just makes the whole figure feel cheap. Very, very cheap. Like, this almost feels like a knockoff in a way. Oh, I'm like I said, I'm not trying to hate on this. Just as somebody who grew up with the Transformers Cybertron figures, this does not feel nice to hold. But let's get down to transformation. In order to separate Optimus from the rest of the super mode, you gotta start by flipping out the wings a little bit, because they unclip from the legs there. And then you're gonna come down here, and from the bottom, where it tabs in both here, and it tabs in, it's hard to show, but it tabs in right here into this gray piece that's part of the cab. You'll see what I mean a little bit better once it's separated. The whole thing's just trying to come apart now instead of separate the cab because it's so tight in there. There. Alright, so what it is these blue struts go in right here, and this little gray piece is clipped to this part right here. That was what was going on. That's why it was so hard to get it out of there. So we're just going to set this whole little mess off to the side for now. And we're just going to put it off the screen completely. And here we have just the cab, and yeah, it's bare basics Optimus folded up. Not quite as bad as the Power to Prime's Optimus, but not too far off. I mean, we really do just have, you don't have the chest piece sticking out at least, but you do have the arms just kind of floating down, and the feet aren't folded up at all. So, but that's also kind of just part of the design because it's meant to have the whole cab covering over it. So let's get him transformed into his basic robot mode. How you're going to want to start is come to the legs, just go and split them, and you are going to want to split them first before you bring them down because they are tabbed into the waist here. Bring them on down, get here to those ratchets. Flip out the little back part, the little foot spurs, heel spurs, there we go. Get them standing up. Go and start swinging the arms out, but don't click them into place yet. Because you're going to want to rotate the whole thing at the waist. If you have the arms clicked in, you're not going to be able to get the head to come out. As you have to fold out the whole chest here. Flip the head around. Clip it back in. And then this whole thing slides. Oh wait, actually before you slide, you actually want to slide this part up. The little grill piece, you want to slide that up. Then slide this back. That tabs all together. Then you're going to tab the arms in, straighten them out. And there you have your rather chunky looking Optimus Prime in his robot mode. Alright, now we got our rather fat Prime here in the robot mode. Let's go and get some comparisons in. Here he is with the original Cybertron Optimus in his robot mode. And you see, you know, not very good resemblance if I'm being honest, but this is also a reuse of Ultra Magnus, so I can kind of understand why. I'm not sure why they kind of try to make him look like G1 Prime when it's clearly not G1 Prime, but you know, you can see he's smaller and the stacks aren't that much, but we'll get back to that when we get the super mode. That matches a little bit better. And since he is a G1 looking Optimus, we'll compare him to another G1 leader class Optimus, Earthrise Prime. Which is a pretty fair comparison since they're basically the same size. And I do like that they actually have different heads. I was kind of expecting them just to reuse the head, but no, they actually gave Earthrise a different Optimus head. Both of them kind of go for G1 Optimus, but slightly different aesthetics. I don't think either one of them does it wrong. All of this is clearly a much more G1 Optimus here. So we'll go ahead and get him out of the way. And let's focus in on this Galaxy Upgrade Optimus here. And he's a pretty neat little figure, but I understand why he's kind of chunky looking because it is based on the Ultra Magnus mold, which has to be kind of chunky in order to have the proportions right in the upgraded armored mode. But if we're going to go for this kind of aesthetics, shouldn't we have just go straight for Energon Optimus? I mean, if we're going to do Unicron Trilogy and have an Optimus that's wearing armor and stuff, wouldn't Energon have been a much better suit for this? For one thing, Energon Optimus was kind of chunky himself to begin with, so that actually fits it perfectly. For another thing, the armor up stuff on his hands and legs, they might have had to change it a little bit more, but it wouldn't have been too far off to do with the Ultra Magnus mold. So I'm not, and once again, this isn't me trying to complain about support for the Cybertron line. I'm glad to see anything being redone as Transformer Cybertron. I'm not sure why this one. I'm not too sure why this one. But anyway, that's enough complaining. We'll get on to his accessories. You can detach this small gun from his trailer here, and you can give him this as a pistol, a giant rifle if you prefer, which very much in tune with the original Cybertron Optimus. Looks pretty good. But you can also take these right here, these pieces, and these can now be held as weapons too. Although they do look a little bit more awkward because it's like you're holding a giant gun by the tip. Like, it doesn't actually look like he's holding it by the handle, it looks like he's holding it by the tip of the handle. Like, it doesn't look like it's sunk into his hand like the silver gun does. So I don't really like giving him those. They work alright as arm cannons. They do have side pegs, so you can give them as sidearm weapons. Although, once again, it looks like it's just sticking off his arm. And of course, he does have peg holes up here, so you can give him shoulder cannons too if you want. Looks a little odd. What I actually like to do is I like to peg them into the backpack here along the sides. And turn his backpack into a jetpack. I mean, Cybertron Optimus never really had a jetpack, but hey, it's a toy, it's fun, have fun with it, do crazy stuff. I think it looks pretty cool. So yeah, there's that. I can get those detached again. I'm just gonna set those off the side. Trailer really can't do anything else. It's just a trailer kind of sitting there. So not too much else you can do with that. And articulation wise, he actually does have a pretty good amount. His head is ball jointed, so you can look all the way around. You can look up, you can look down a little bit. Just kind of yes, no, yes, no. You do get rotation here. Get a rotation there. Rotation above the elbow. Pretty good elbows, just a hair over 90 degrees. And you do get a swivel at the wrist. You do get a swivel up here, of course, which I think is pretty neat, considering we actually have a moving part. Because this actually started off down here. And this is actually something for years I actually thought about Transformers could do, is have pieces that move. Like, not so much that have a part. It's kind of like parts forming, but it's not, in the fact that like you never actually fully took it off, but it did completely move to a different area and it's no longer connected to the original area. It's actually a really neat piece of engineering. It's something I wish I actually thought of, like, not as a kid, like as a teenager. I was like, hey, why don't Transformers try this? And it's kind of like, hey, here it is. And it works really well, to be honest. It's kind of a neat bit of transformation to get this out of the way without giving them a giant butt. I mean, he does leave them with a backpack, but it's still neat. So yep, swivel at the waist works really well. Ratchet hips, go that far. Go that far back. And go outward almost fully. And you do get a swivel. It's a little bit hard to use. It's ratchet, but it is a swivel. Really tight knee. It's not quite ratchet, but it is a tight knee. It goes 90 degrees. And you do actually have a foot articulation. Not forward and back, but you do have a little tilts. So he actually does have better articulation than the original, so I'll give him that. But that's also to be expected with the modern age. But you can give him a pretty good pose going. Gonna be kind of confused in the battlefield. Optimus has put on a few pounds, but hey, let's make the fat jokes. It's there to be made. So yeah, not a bad little Prime. Very confused aesthetically, but he looks great. He works great. So let's get him into his super mode. I ain't doing the whole transformation sequence from the original show, especially since it's really not going to work here. But before getting it transformed, we're going to take the trailer first. Go ahead and take it. And it's tabbed in, the back piece is tabbed in two places. It's tabbed here, right here at the top. And it's tabbed in right in here. And I'll show that as best as I can. But usually the bottom part actually comes in first when you really untab the top. It's really tightly tabbed. As you see, the plastic actually kind of starts bending a little bit. But there you go. You untab it like that. You can see it's tabbed in two places right there, and these are usually a lot easier to get off. So you set that little piece there to the side, take the feet, go and split them, and inside you have the shoulder pieces, which do emulate the cab, because in the course in the original Cybertron Optimus, the cab split to form his shoulders. So you take those little pieces, just slide them right over. And just to try to show you how these line up, there's a tab there that plugs into this hole, and then the little there goes into that hole there. So just kind of like that. Shoulders still kind of stick out at the bottom, but you know, it gets the general job done. For legs, you want to fold his heel spurs back up, and this just kind of slides into here. Doesn't really click, but it does just stay on pretty well, so gives them some beefier legs. And if you need extra heel support in this mode, you can flip out these giant heels, and that does give him really good support to keep him standing. Oh, his crotch piece transforms for this, so I'm not sure. I've looked at the instructions, I've looked at everything, and I can't really tell which way it's supposed to be. I always put it like this for G1 or for the powered down Prime, because it's kind of G1 style crotch. And you flip it around, and you can see it actually has more of the the hinge detailing and such that the original Cybertron Optimus had, like with the big old hinge right there and everything. So, and the lights being a little bit sleeker. So it's kind of up to you, but I personally do this for the kind of combined mode. Now for this piece, you actually pull these off for his arms. So you're just going to fold those, and you're going to want to make sure where the wheel is sticking up like that. And you're just going to tab it to his arm. Same here, just make sure the wheel is sticking up, and just peg it to his arm. And that kind of tries to emulate the original Cybertron Optimus arms. You are going to need to slide his chest forward again, slide this piece back down to that position. As we move on to the wing pack, which is kind of the most pain in the butt part of this whole transformation, but we'll get through it. So you're going to want to just spread the wings out, just to give yourself some more room. Now this little piece right here comes down, but it is pegged right in here, or tabbed in. It's a little hook tab, so it's hard to get it back out, but you can see right there, it's this little hook tab goes into that slot down there. Just going to bring this on around, get these little components up out of the way, fold this in, and then bring these down, and that kind of makes them flush in there. Doesn't really tab them in, but this becomes his back, so that kind of helps flush that all in. The guns are on these hinges. You're just going to bring them around like this. Bring them around on the hinge and bring them up, pointing up at the sky. Turn the Optimus head around. Fold this red panel up and fold out the chest plate. Come back to this Optimus, unpeg the arms. You are going to slide it back forward because I forgot earlier, but you do. When you have it slid forward in order to move the back piece down, you are going to open them back up to put the head away. Tab that all back in, slide that back into place. And now this little piece right here, the reason you have to have this part pushed down is that this is what tabs into here. So you're going to get the head up out of the way as much as possible. Bring that all in. Tab that on there. Bring this down flat, and it has two little tabs that go right into here, right below the windows. Should tab all in. Then you take little black cannons, and in order to emulate the original, you just kind of peg them onto here. You can kind of peg them either way. I prefer with them kind of sticking up over the shins, is how I personally prefer it. But you can put them either way. And there you have your Galaxy Upgrade Optimus in his combined leader mode. Alright, now we got them all upgraded and armored. Let's go ahead and get some comparisons out of the way. And let's go for the obvious one first. Let's get in Cybertron Leader Class Optimus here. Because he's precious. Okay, I'm not stealing from MGO. But this is where I can actually give this new figure some credit in that, in some ways, he does actually improve over this one here. The original, he was kind of hard to move. All the stuff he had, he was really back heavy. As you can see, he's kind of wanting to fly back. Well, this one, I mean, obviously the backpack's not as heavy, but he doesn't have any stability problems like this one does. Plus, he has actual ankle tilts and everything, while the original's just kind of sitting on his two flats here. Like, I always had to lean mine kind of forward to get him to stand like this. Like he's kind of having to bow forward in order to just stand straight. You usually have to stand at the back of the shelf just to keep him standing. But it also might just be the hips wearing out over time. But, I do feel like it actually has some improvements. For one thing, the feet look more like feet rather than here, where it just kind of looks like big bulky pieces sticking out. The leg improvement's actually better because here, his legs are still as scrawny as the original, he's just a little bit taller. Here they actually improved on that by having the armor piece actually thicken out his leg a little bit, so it actually makes it a little bit better. For here at the arms, on the original, the arms are actually kind of stubby. On the full figure, like, they looked fine on his normal mode, but on the super form, they do come off as very short and very stubby. While here, they were kind of long in the robot mode, but here, in super mode, they kind of make sense, and they're bulked out, too. So, there is some significant improvements. I think they even handled the guns better on how to flip around, because on the original, in order to flip the gun around, excuse all the ratchet noises, you have to kind of awkward bring it down, just bring it like that, and there was nothing to do there, and just have his hand kind of hold there. I'm going to go ahead and get him out of the way. Well, on the new one, it's a little bit more awkward to get through, but you can flip it around, and it's just a little handhold. So you can actually bring the guns around. And the handholds, the neat part is they're actually adjustable. They slide back and forth depending on where you want his hands at exactly. And they do actually, you have to finagle with it a little bit, but they do actually tab into his hands for him to hold them to do his super attack that he did in the show. Now obviously he doesn't have the electronics, he doesn't have the Matrix gimmick, even his ears aren't the right color, they're supposed to be black and they're blue here, but that's kind of just to be expected with modern Hasbro, and it's kind of funny looking at this figure for me because I can remember when people say, when a lot of reviewers got to say the Titans Return, not Jinrai, but the the upgraded Optimus, and they were talking about how this one wasn't the same as the original. It was kind of worse than the original. It was a little bit cheaper. It didn't have the same gimmicks. And at the time, I thought there was nothing wrong with the figure. And now I'm kind of having a similar effect with this one because I grew up with the original Unicron trilogy Cybertron Optimus, and now I have this one, and I'm kind of getting a similar effect where, okay, yeah, he has some modern engineering improvements, but as far as how the cool factor, he's a little bit worse, you know. But he's also not bad. Like, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, if you're gonna buy this figure, this is the mode you're buying it for. You're not buying it for the Optimus Prime mode. You're not buying it for the vehicle mode. Both of those are just okay. You're buying him for this mode. This is the mode you're buying him for. And no, he's not in scale in the least way in your Cybertron figures, but he also doesn't look bad. If the original's too expensive, because I know the original with all the pieces intact goes for hundreds of dollars. Last time I checked, it's like $170, $180 for the figure complete. That's pretty high. While this figure goes for about, if you're going by EV prices, he still goes for about $50 to $60, which is still, it's a little bit, it's more than I would pay for it. I personally got lucky and got him in the toy shop for about $35. I feel like that's a great price for him. But if you can get, if he looks worth it to you, I think $50 still isn't bad for it. But I wouldn't pay more than $50 if I'm being honest. And since I got off track, let's get another comparison in. Here he is next to Earthrise Optimus. You can see he's much taller now, between the feet being taller plus the added height from where the headpiece attaches. He definitely looks a lot bigger and a lot more impressive than the Voyager-sized Earthrise Optimus here. Although the Earthrise Optimus also has the G1 trailer, but we're not getting into all that. That's his review for some other time. But yeah, he can do the full super attack gimmick, which I think is pretty cool that he actually carried that over. The guns still fold up in the back. There we go. You can't flip the wings around like you could on the original, but this is the more show accurate version like this. Articulation wise, it's about the same as before. His head is on the ball joint, so you can look up, you can look down and all that. Do get still have the swivel here. Arm still goes out this far. Do get a swivel here. Elbow, hand. It's basically all the same. Waist still works. Everything still works the same. The only difference is how his feet work, basically. As now you have the hinge here, and you still don't have any forward back movement, but now the hinge is down here at the bottom of his armor upgraded feet. So it actually works a little bit better because he actually has better stability with the giant feet he has. Then of course you can also move these around if you want to kind of emulate the original. But yeah, that's a Galaxy Upgrade Optimus Prime. Not a perfect revamp of the original. Obviously he's not automatically better than the original at all to me. I do think it's a little bit weird they went for the G1 aesthetics in his normal robot mode. I also think it's weird that like if you're gonna have this kind of chunky Prime with the armor coming on, they probably should have gone for the Energon Optimus. That would have fit a little bit better in my opinion. But once again, I'm also kind of glad to see Cybertron representation in a modern era, and I do think he's a really decent figure. Not amazing, not great. I can't recommend him over Earthrise Optimus or anything like that. But if you do like the Cybertron aesthetic and you're a big fan of it, or you just like how this Optimus looks, I could still say he's a decent figure. Just know you're buying him for the super mode. You're buying him for this mode. If this mode doesn't impress you, there's almost no reason to buy this figure. If you prefer G1 style Optimus Primes, this figure is not going to impress you at all. But for what it is, it's not bad. It really is not bad. So, this has been Kerzac. I hope you enjoyed this review, and hope you have a great day. Take care.